Welcome to Wildfire. I'm Denby Sheether, and this is Midlife Medicine for Women on the Rise. Here, we believe your body isn't burning out, it's burning through. I speak with healers, teachers, and medicine women who walk this path alongside us. And once a month, in our Wisdom in the Room segment, I sit with real, ordinary women whose stories are the medicine. No pedestals, no credentials required, just truth. So, let's light it up. Today we are in Wise Words With, and honestly, this one is particularly close to my heart because my guest today is not only someone whom I love dearly and whose work I deeply respect, she is someone whose work I carry. I am a trained facilitator of her body of work, and I think once you hear her speak, you'll understand exactly why. Belinda-Jane has spent 4 decades in private practice. 4 decades. She's a trained psychologist, though she would probably be the first to tell you that psychology in the conventional sense is only the beginning of what she does. And we'll get to that. She's the founder and creator of Elements of Life, a simply sacred system, a 6-week hypnotic-based course that has been transforming the lives of individuals, couples, families, and organisations for years. She is a death doula, a parentcraft guide, a grief counsellor, a marriage counsellor, and a rebel sovereign soul at heart, which is frankly one of the things I love most about her. She is 63, mother of 3 gorgeous, talented daughters. She's lived and studied in 5 countries, and she holds within her 4 decades of client secrets, stories, and turning points that have given her a quality of wisdom that is genuinely rare. Belinda-Jane, welcome to Wildfire. This one is going to be fun.
Thank you for the invitation.
We've been trying to plan this for a while, and we're juggling tree shredders and snoring dogs on the couch as we do this, so bear with us. It's kind of nice to have the reality. That's what we're like anyway, aren't we?
Oh, so much.
Take us as we are. So for the women listening who are meeting you for the first time, can you tell us a little about your journey? 4 decades is a long time to dedicate to this work. What drew you to it and what has kept you here?
I came in for this, and when I studied psych, right from the outset, I found that there were elements missing, and to me, that was sacrilege. I just felt, how's this going to work long term for people? And I argued a lot. And so I think they were very glad to see the back of me, to be perfectly honest. And yeah, I was a rebel then. And just because I knew that I'd come in, I mean, I really don't like the expression or the term healer. I knew that I came in to assist others to do that for themselves. And that wasn't the psychological model at that time. And then, of course, I went to the States where you had to have your own private therapist for 17 to 25 years. But, it's just like an accompaniment to normal life. And I also felt that that was wrong. So I went there to learn hypnosis, pain control, and eventually developed that into hypnotic, because a friend of mine, as I was studying, was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and given a sort of limited time to live. And he was an ex-boyfriend of mine from New York and someone I love dearly. So I came home. He said, "You've got to come home. I need you." And I got to write my course on his back stairs in Paddington, thinking and feeling and almost channeling what do people ultimately need to heal? What are the steps and stages? Because this is dire. And I wanted to make it fast and simple. which is why the system's called Simply Sacred System, because the sacred certainly wasn't really relevant. I had a brilliant lecturer in LA, and he did bring in the sacred, and that's how I knew I could mold it and blend it my own way.
Yeah. And I think it's important to make the distinction there when you say it's fast. It's not fast food mentality, which is what we see so much in the industry. It's simple and it's concise and it's sacred and it works.
It works.
And it just happens to not take weeks or months
or years
of like continued torture and going. And we've had conversations about that for so many years as well, about just being stuck in ruts with therapists as well that can become very codependent as well.
Yeah.
That's probably what you're alluding to in the States, is like the therapist actually becomes like a family member almost.
Absolutely.
Because it's like they don't go anywhere
without that, where our work is saying, how can I best equip the person then when they leave you to be able to implement those same 4 skills for the rest of their life, regardless of what the situation is.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, as you're probably listening, and those of you who know my work too, this, you can see why we are so aligned, because it's like we're there, obviously there to support people, but we don't want to be the crutch that people rely on, because that's disempowering ultimately, isn't it? And everything, a lot of the stuff, I should say, rather than everything in the allopathic, which I call the alternative model, as you know, tends to create that reliance because they need repeat customers for money and their products and all those sorts of things. Yeah. So you describe your work as evolved psychology, which I love, as you know. Can you unpack that a little bit more for us? Like, what's the difference between what you do exactly and what the standard clinical psychologist does?
I feel introducing the sacred would be the single most important part. The saying that we are all God on earth in my mind, God being generator, organizer, deliverer of your gift, your highest good, what you came to bring. I don't know that that's the central theme in modern, even psychology at the beginning when I learned about it. It was really, I guess, regurgitating what some old guy had said 50, those just tells you how old I am, 50 to 60 years ago, 100 years ago now. And I always felt like, to start with, where are the women? We didn't learn anything about anything women said. You would have to look outside.
Nothing.
Very little. You were able to research, but it wasn't actually in the main
incorporated in the curriculum or anything like that. That's just
not that it is now.
Yeah, wow.
It is more so now, but we still go back to these 2, 3 fathers of psych.
Yeah.
And their agenda was very different. Their agenda was more about themselves and seeking to be able to egotistically say, we've found this out, this model and body of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they were foundational only in that way. Yeah. But as far as being able to empower people to find that spark I spoke about, to find the sacred, that is just not the MO.
Yeah.
And I feel, because I came in to offer something else right at the get-go, that felt like a stopgap for me.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because the spiritual, as you know from my work too, it's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. There are 4 layers to the human, and you can't be an integrated human unless you have incorporated.
And especially because the spiritual comes first.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that most people realise.
Well, they wouldn't.
Yeah.
And when I would say you choose your parents, this is, again, 36 years ago. So I kind of knew if I was going to see a person again, how they, whether they balked at that statement, and whether, when you say to someone, you have chosen everything, this matrix is a choice matrix, that terrified a lot of people, but they would still come back, because I feel like there was a grain of truth in the hypnotic around themselves and how intensely profound the healing was. And consciousness has shifted, certainly, where we needed to go really into the deep and dark in those days in hypnotic. It's much different now.
Totally different now.
Totally different.
Yeah, it's, that's another podcast all on its own, just discussing the industry and the development and what they knew and what they didn't know and what they say and all that stuff. Anyway, let's go into elements of life. So the 6-week course, and this has just been launched recently online, which, I've seen has been a huge body of work to translate. I totally understand that. That's the centerpiece of everything, yeah? Tell us what that actually is and what someone can expect from it.
We spend an hour and a half together each week, before it was online. And that's what I'd based everything for the online course on, the hundreds, maybe thousands of people I had seen. hour and a half each week, an hour of us speaking through the philosophy and where they actually are in the blueprint, them understanding the 9 graphics, making sure that they've really got their got a handle on those, and that within those 9 graphics, every answer is there. So that's why after I'd practiced long enough, because, I feel like a lot of courses are just like, oh, here's an idea and it's popped online. And I never wanted to be like that. I'm not a big online present person.
Yep.
But this was, so many people had said to me, this is too good and too transforming to not make more mainstream.
Yep.
So I'd had that said to me so many times over the years. And then emerging from my kind of dark night of the soul, I'm like, I can do anything now.
Exactly. It's like, oh, if I had $1 every time.
Someone said to me, why don't you put this online?
Yeah.
So I had to wait until it was transferable that way. And so it is. Then the first sort of module is about letting go of what you're not, which is the main reason we come from the spirit realm into density in the first place, is to release all of the things and all of the layers and all of the stuff that we carry that is not aligned and divinely designed. The next week is tuning into the inner child, which is the feeling body, and to go through all of the different layers and processes and pathologies, I guess, that you've been holding on to, and maybe some experiences in childhood. So it's inner child work, and the body carries that. The body keeps the score, as you know, better than anyone. And then the third week is image rehearsal, which is practicing the highest version, the image of yourself as you choose to be, money, time, energy, love, with those balances. Fourth week is teaching the client to go into hypnotic for themselves. And that's so imperative. So again, there's no dependency, although the hypnotic scripts are all within the course. That's another thing. I used to tape them, back in the olden days, everyone would have a
cassette recorder.
And I was waiting for Indigo to wake up and like sweaty palms and having to redo it again if she cried, because there was none of this going back over and stopping and starting in those days.
No, it's just like,
so everyone got one of those recordings. And I've had clients, even 10, 20 years ago say, please, can I, like, the tape's perished, please, can I have that again? I'm like, oh no, not doing that now. So that was another reason. And the fifth week is really making sure that those graphics are understood, that they actually recognize how to integrate all of those things into their own life, and also to look back on the 5 weeks that have been and because they're writing a journal as they go along on the online as well. And what happens is they can notice such a difference between the things that they wanted to let go of, how successfully they've been tuning into what their body's telling them in that regard, how it feels to operate from their highest version. Now they will have practiced hypnotic for a while. And so on that fifth week, it's really also a review. How have you been going? What's working? What's not working? And then I have a routine of ritual that I've introduced at the beginning as well. And if they're implementing all of those things, radical transformation. And they're such simple, as you know, such simple things. Then the sixth week is the God session, which has nothing to do with Christianity, as you also know better than anybody. It's to do with the idea, and the identity needs to change around what that means. In my view, everyone is a particle of that on the planet. And has the potential to be that. And so they, in hypnotic, will see their colors, they'll see the version of themselves that is really linked to their soul cord and story, which is interesting when you have people at the beginning that don't even recognize and understand that they have a soul. And then by the end, they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, actually,
that can be groundbreaking.
You are.
Exactly. Actually, quote that. I know. This is the thing, as you know well as well, is that the things that come easily to you and me that are just simple no-brainers, we often forget that those basic foundational precepts are completely foreign to the majority of people. And so we can have conversations like this, or even people can be listening to this, even this podcast, or you can be in a cafe, or other people are just hearing your conversation just because everyone's close together. You don't mean to eavesdrop, but you just can't help that sometimes. And you'll be talking about sometimes the simplest things, the simplest concepts, which can be obviously mind-blowing and life-changing for people. But I imagine there's also a lot of fear around those things too, because they've got to go to the deepest parts of themselves through those 6 weeks and then keep going, haven't they?
Yeah, and it's always the bits you don't want to look at.
Yeah, of course.
That you have to, it's the stones that you don't want to pick up and turn.
Yep.
And I make sure that every stone is picked up and turned because that's my job.
Yeah, right.
Right. And then in that final one, I think the recognition that even if they leave that course or they leave my door with the recognition that, wait a minute, I have been, or we are indoctrinated with something that is not there to serve or save or heal us, then we've also done our work.
Yeah.
You know, where they're questioning, then they're beginning to see things from the inside out rather than being indoctrinated from the outside and just cognitive dissonance running with it.
Yeah.
And then I feel like, yes, you know, I have that feeling.
Yeah, it's a good feeling, isn't it? It does happen. I mean, that's why we do this work, you know, totally. You can hear the dog out there whining. I'm going to have to just stop the podcast and bring him in. Give me a second, guys. Okay, we're back. I now have Blaze on my lap. You are going to hear him snore. It was just too torturous listening to him crying through the door. I'm sure nobody will mind. There's lots of dog lovers out there. Okay, Belinda-Jane, I want to take us into territory that I know is deeply relevant to the women listening, and something I know you have written and thought about for a very long time. One of your blog posts recently on your site was titled "Wild Woman to Wise Woman." And when I read it, it stopped me. So I want to start there. You wrote, and I want to quote this because it's so beautiful, that the transition from wild woman to wise woman happens in moments from the inside, a vague haze, an emotional inability to express clearly, waves where nothing feels easy. So can you take us into that? What is actually happening for a woman in this transition from your perspective?
I love to say, if anyone really understands the miracle that occurs from a closed chrysalis state of the butterfly to becoming the butterfly, the women actually become goo, which is exactly what happens in the chrysalis, right?
Yeah.
Goes from the caterpillar, where we've been inching our way along as partner, you know, children, partners, mothers, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, everything stops for her and she can feel a difference. And of course, again, that's been pathologized. There's been something wrong with you. You need to treat these symptoms.
Yeah, got to keep going at the same pace.
That haze is because you're supposed to stop. That forgetting is because you're supposed to forget a lot of things and remember who you are.
Yeah.
And when you start and begin, as you know, to medicate those things, then what happens is their magical mystery and their majesty is lost. And then, of course, it's like, well, this is just a nuisance now, rather than these are sacred messages. Oh my gosh, like if the planet was ruled and run and cared for primarily by women during this phase, we would have no war. We would have beautiful communities and childcare, and not the way that women have been driven to just be men. They do the woman's work at home and they do the job of a man, and wonder why they feel burnt out around that time.
Yeah.
Where they will no more, they can no longer, because they're not supposed to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It's nature's way, it's biology's way, it's spirit's way of saying, you have actually done enough. Now bring your gift, bring your wisdom, heal the world. They're the times, that's the years that's supposed to happen.
Yep. And the programming, of course, the social programming and all those agendas behind those things have taken us in a completely opposite direction.
Yeah, by design.
By design again,
because
as we say.
Have always been afraid of that moment. I remember my brother used to say, how do you trust a creature that bleeds for 5 days and survives, you know? So it was really, again, the mystical. We don't really understand it. I mean, even at uni, and the doctors, of course, were in the faculty beside us, and all of the medical experimentation, all of the research was only on men. Women are completely different creatures.
Yeah.
It didn't even come into it at all. So how could they then have a body of work that would support women through that sacred rite of passage?
And just thinking about menstruation, but then birth. I mean, any man, any blokes listening to this, wives with their partners, women with their partners, a man that has witnessed his partner give birth, like not on film, but actually been there, like there's no words for that. Like that changes everybody. And when you witness that, I mean, I remember my partner looking at me and just going, "You're fucking superwoman."
Yeah.
Like
And
that, he didn't say that, but his face was just like,
been taken
even that's been taken from us.
And
yeah.
we, as I say to women, we allowed it to go.
Mm.
We allowed the red tent to go. We allowed ourselves to lay down to give birth. So the doctor, generally in those days male, 99% male doctors who have never given birth, telling us how to do that. That's instrumentally a wrong thing.
Yeah, totally.
That needs to feel wrong.
And there's probably a flavour, and I'm just thinking this could be another podcast stream that we could do in the future as well. It's like there is an element, there would have been for sure a small element of wounded women, so the wounded aspect of the sisterhood that may have also enabled a lot of that as well, because that's been carried down where we've been turned against each other, for example, and all those scars that we carry about, the jealousy and the competition between women, etc., that obviously starts when we're very young and can continue on until we're 70 or 80 as well. So there's always going to be a small faction of those people too. But you're right, in general, that whole patriarchal structure of moving the power away from the women or trying to take the power, because they're never going to take the power, we know that. They can try, but they're never going to succeed.
Medicine and psychology was.
Yeah,
that's what
thank God it's not the same now.
What politics and governance was.
Yeah.
So corporations mostly were run or are run by men. So that's what I'm saying. All wars are begun.
Yeah, well, it's the doing, the striving, the organising.
Which is what women need to stop doing during menopause, is the time where you go, you actually can't do it anymore physiologically for a reason, because what you've been doing will and can burn you completely out.
Yeah, totally. You wrote something also that I think will hit every woman listening right between the eyes. There's a lot of things that you say tend to do in a good way. You said, quote, "Anxiety melts to compassion. Lusting after outcome diminishes. When you tire, you rest. When you achieve, it's enough. And it is this stillness that completes you." So, which is kind of what you just really said then. And that sounds like a promise. So is it? And how, if it is, how do women get there?
By stopping.
Okay.
It's really that simple.
Yeah, it always is.
It's so important that, and it's not really about that ledger or taking stock of the past. Have I done enough? It's actually, I'm more than enough now. And then landing into a platform of feeling deserving and worthy.
That's the big thing, isn't it?
It's everything. Yeah. And it takes the moment's silence, morning and evening, more than enough. Deserving and worthy.
Yep.
And they're really, really critical words to weave into the fabric of your court of the universe. And if you don't do it then, you're not going to do it. That's really how profound that moment in time or that rite of passage is.
I just think of it now while you're saying that. How would you explain that being different to gratitude practices, for example, because that's a big thing especially in the new age movement of like gratitude for everything, and brush a lot of stuff under the carpet and just carry on, keep smiling, carrying on. So how would you explain that to listeners, that what you just said there is that feeling deserving and worthy? How is that maybe slightly different to just having gratitude for everything?
Because it says no matter what has gone on in the past, I still arrive in this moment as a result of everything that's gone on in the past in the perfect place for me and what I've come and what I bring. Deserving and worthy is, from every human being from their first breath, actually is deserving and worthy of being here. But I would say very few people actually arrive at it on their own. I feel like you do really need a little bit of help along the way and some skills along the way, because it's certainly not taught by parents. It's not taught in schools. I mean, the parenting movement is definitely changing. which is a good thing.
Mm.
But I still integrate a gratitude prayer at night as part of our routine of ritual, which basically what it does is resets your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system into like an exhale.
Mm.
For this, I am so grateful, right? So it's almost like the wave washing over you.
Mm.
Deserving and worthy is every single minute of every single day. Yeah. So that's, I guess, how I would differentiate it.
Yeah. So it's more like embodiment versus gratitude being a practice almost sort of thing. Yeah. Okay. No, that's great.
It feels different to feel deserving and worthy.
Yeah.
And you will only accept what you feel deserving and worthy of. So it's actually the biggest question any human being can ask themselves.
And I can personally attest to that.
All of us to start.
All of it. Yeah. Now, a lot of women, like me in ways, in perimenopause, they arrive completely unprepared, and often quite frightened too. Their bodies are changing, their emotions are bigger. They feel like, or bigly, as you would say, they feel like they're losing something. And I speak to this in my dialogue and my way, of course. And many are going through divorce, career changes, life disruptions of all kinds. What would you want those women to hear?
They're supposed to. They're supposed to go through divorces, career changes, and rediscovering themselves then because of everything that they've experienced and lost and regained. And the regaining comes actually from them going, something in my neurology, something in my biology, something in my way of being who I am needs to intrinsically change here now. And that is completely normal. Yeah. I'm not supposed to go back to the way I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s.
Yeah.
I now have arrived, usually, as you know, between 45, 55. I even remember when I first started to learn about this work, that it was spoken about in a 3-year kind of around 49 to 52. And so anyone that you would see that went into perimenopause at 40 was like, something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
Anyone, like I was breastfeeding a child at 48, right? So mine was really
totally outside the box. Yeah.
Thank you. So I didn't really hit it till about 51, 52. But the distinct moment for me was I was hanging clothes on the line at home, and I had a small child, like a little girl, and I wanted her to be my world. I was doing everything else, and I had older children, and I remember thinking, I've done this is enough. I'm not getting this in, doing that. Like, it was really like I had this checklist of what I'll no longer do. And that's just a very practical external thing. Mm. But what women get is sacred rage. If no one, so say, let's just use an example of like 45, 46, and they start to feel the perimenopause, and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Mm. So it can be as finely tuned as the description that the example I just gave you, or it can be way more broad reaching. It can be at work. It could be in association with your intimate relationship and partnership. Yeah. And if it's not heard, you begin to develop and ignite a fury and a sacred rage, and you're supposed to. And so then when, the hot flushes and whatever, that is part of that, right? Yeah. And so you then medicate that down rather than this wave and rush of sacred rage. And it's not always having anger attached to it. It's just your body rebooting and recalibrating and cleansing out. It's actually burning the past. Yeah.
It's a birthing experience.
Everything, absolutely.
It's literally, because it's like, when you're in and over. Those contractions, and then learn to surrender to them. Yeah. And they're like, oh no, we'll give her this and we'll give her that. Yeah. Which in some cases, I'm not saying that some women may need assistance, that's totally fine. But we have, again, been conditioned to distrust and disconnect from our own birthing fire that allows us to go into that vortex, which is, as you know, you've done 3 times, like intense. And you can't really explain that to anyone until they've gone through it themselves.
But this is that, except in a 7-year period.
Exactly.
It's a 7-year birth canal. But where you arrive after that 7 years is the most incredibly powerful wisdom that you could imagine. Like you can't look as you walk into the tunnel and imagine how you'll emerge out of it. It's not possible. You have got to go through it, as the bear would say.
And you can't hold your breath as you go through the tunnel either, ladies. Like, I used to go into the Harbour Bridge tunnel and test with my sister, hold our breath and see how long we could go. You can't do that shit. You have to breathe
through the blood, sweat and tears. Yeah. And it is such an integral part of the human experience.
Yeah.
that's been not only disempowered and medicated, but also minimized to the point that if this came to the planet now, everything on every level would change so quickly.
Completely. Which brings us to working with men, because I know that you do work with men too. And in the context of menopause, and when Belinda-Jane and I say menopause, as I say all the time on my own and with other guests as well, it's a rite of passage. We're just using that word because it's the familiar word for everybody. But it is just I mean, it has the etymology attached to it, but it's really a sacred rite of passage. So that's often the missing piece. The partner who doesn't understand what's happening. Maybe doesn't want to understand because the disconnection or whatever's going on within those dynamics of every relationship, everyone's different. So can you speak to how this transition for women affects relationships and what, in your experience, you feel men need to know?
I prepare them. I say what is going to happen because no one's preparing them. Everyone's making fun of it. Everyone's making a joke. They used to make the joke about when she bled and being what do you call it, premenstrual. Now it's perimenopause. It still was tarred with the same brush, but the conscious and evolved men that come to me, they really want to understand because they want their marriage to survive and they feel in danger. And I said, good. Because she's not going to be the same woman. She's going to be
better.
She's going to be incredible. But you need to keep away from her when she needs her space and hold her tight when she needs that. And and that may change 3 or 4 times a day. And your role to be close to her enough to be able to sense that. And that's what grows you into be the man or the king worthy and deserving of the next 30, 40 years with her.
Yep.
And they get it. So I say, don't take things personally. When this happens, it's not about you. If it is about you, clean up your act. Like, start to take responsibility for your part in that, because she will no more, she can no longer. And they come to me the next week and go, oh my God, it's so much better now. Because they don't shut down and become evil.
Well, they want to fix things by nature.
They also are thinking,
which we love them for,
lost her mind.
Yeah.
And I'm living with a psychopath. Yeah. Rather than coming through the screen of that lunacy to this is an evolving, she doesn't understand the process. She's getting there. Walk with her, hold her hand when she wants to, and let her hand go when she doesn't want you there, and start to pick up on the signs and deliver her love languages. I will be with you through this because I love you. These people that come out of that, they're the ones I know will last forever. They're the ones that I can go, and I can generally pick in marriage counselling now within 15 minutes, which is a skill that only comes from hundreds of couples, thousands maybe. I can always, when they've come from that and they've arrived successfully and they've learned the depths of one another's souls, they will last. And it's beautiful for families when you see that.
Yeah.
Because the woman finally tells her truth that she may not have been even aware of before that.
Exactly. And that ties into the spiritual aspect of things, of like this, the beingness that you know that you are, but you can't maybe articulate it or haven't connected fully to it. And then it's just like, oh, here it comes.
Yeah.
And there is so much of that going on in social media. And I'm going to do a separate podcast to address that, because I saw something the other day and it was just like this perimenopause rage and women and sort of painting it as normal and natural. And it's like, well, my feeling is that, well, women, like in birth, all your shit comes up. So if you haven't dealt with things regularly, periodically throughout your life, it's going to be like a tsunami of emotions. So yes, that's what's happening for you, but it's not, we shouldn't be normalizing that, and it certainly shouldn't be medicating
and it's only one part of it.
Totally.
Like when we speak about sacred rage, anger motivates change. Its role is to transmute what's burning and the phoenix to rise, not to constantly just be an eternally
blowing off.
Bush. That's not what it is.
No, but that's why it's been painted, though, the difference in the...
Because they don't understand it, because they don't want to understand it, because if they understood it, the world would change.
Yeah.
Wisdom would be reinstilled.
Can't have that. Well, we will. So if you and I have anything to do with it, we're there. It's coming. Now, you're also a death doula, my love. I mean, the list goes on. Amici Mortis, friend of the dying. I want to sit with that for a moment. And of course, you've been my rocks going through what I have with my dad passing. for so many women in midlife, this work becomes unexpectedly personal. You know, parents aging, dying, sometimes why they themselves, like myself, are navigating perimenopause. Um, how do you intersect your death doula work with everything else that you do, or do you intersect that organically?
It happens rarely, and because the coursework really is my gift that I came in with. That little bit is really that personifies me and what I've come to do and bring. The death doula work came about because during, again, 30 years ago, an Avalon, I actually was living in Cremorne, and an Avalon man who was doing chemotherapy for liver cancer came to see me, and he was one of my most profound cases because when he would go into hypnotic, he was for the only time pain-free. There were no drugs that they could give him. The chemotherapy, the smell of the chemotherapy would fill the room as he went in. And which was just, this is where it all began to become quite an ethereal and spiritual practice for me. And then his sisters called me as he was dying and said, he's asking for you. So we came up here. I went into the room with him. He dropped into tears in his eyes, dropped into hypnotic. And as he was dying, he had some pretty serious father issues. His father, he was telling me, I said, where are you now? I'm on a boat. And he was moving the boat, like a punt across and mist and whatever. And I said, who's on the other side of the bank? And he said, it's Dad. And he started to cry. And as he was dying, and I said, and what's he doing now? He's holding me. I can't even talk about it without crying. And then he died.
Oh, wow.
So that was me going, oh, I clearly can help a few people anyway with this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, it was, my clients have all qualified me. Nothing that I really have learned externally has brought this work through. It's like, this is now what you need to do. And so it's really, again, as a projector in human design, people need to come to me and say, will you be with me? Or will you be with my mum or my dad? And always the answer is yes. What a privilege. No greater privilege.
I want to ask you if you felt to share on this topic of what you were going through with your beautiful mum and being the death doula that you are. Do you feel to share that story?
Yeah, what was really interesting about that, and I was just talking to you about it before, it's like I wasn't there for her birth, but here I was privileged enough to be there for her death. And the fact that through my life, from when she was about, this is my mother in a nutshell, at her 30th birthday, that she was a glamour, my mother, like a model, and public speaking.
June Danny Watkins extraordinaire.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
Grooming and deportment. Anyway, so for her 30th birthday, she had a wake, and people were wearing like purple and black, and wreaths were coming to the door, and she would just burst out laughing, right? And the people delivering, the florists were going, why is this crazy woman laughing? And so Mum had a very natural way about speaking about death. To her, it was just a part of life. She was very matter of fact about it. And so she would speak to me, this is what I want, this is what I don't want. So I guess I was getting the training from the matriarch, from the best in the business from a really young age, when people normally at 6 or 8, people normally don't speak to children about that at that age. So it was a very natural and easy thing for me to slide into.
Yeah.
And with her, I was like a little girl doing a very grown-up thing. So
you wrote the masters by her deathbed,
because she said to me, I'm not having you not work while I'm dying. And I said, but Mum, I just kind of want to spend a bit of extra time with you if that's all right. And she said, no, you need to, because she's the big,
make it productive, darling.
The biggest contributor and server, as you know. Yeah. So I lay at her, the bottom of her bed, because I had like one of those little cot beds at the bottom, and wrote the 50 weeks that the facilitators can move into when they're finished, when they've qualified to treat and train. And I would, as the days went on, she's like, well, I'm up to 27, Mum. What number are you up to now? 46. And I was kind of in my mind going, I'm never going to get to 50 because I know the woman's just going to die within. And
there's some more.
Yeah, it's exactly what happened, of course. I got to 50 and the smile on her face and the relief, like this has been worthwhile. And 2 days later,
Doing it with you. Yeah.
2 days later, she was dead.
Far out, man. I remember that time.
Yeah. So we finished it on the Friday. She died on the Sunday night.
Far out. I mean, that just is so many parallels as well when you're sharing that again. I mean, I've heard that many times, but it feels like the first time every time that I hear it. And, you know, as you know, I wrote my book with Dad as a way to first off deal with my grief of realizing that he had cancer and he was going to go. And that was a journal just for me. And then it evolved into a whole book about dying and all the different types. And he would edit it with me and I'd read it to him like it was dedicated to him, of course.
Yeah.
And that was healing for me, like yours was there too.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people will be able to relate to this in their own ways of like it's not a bad thing if you, I mean, obviously if you're just going to put your head down, bum up and deny what's going on
Yeah.
and use that as a way to deflect, that's different. But to use what your gift is and allow that to almost be enhanced and just live through you to a deeper level while you're going through such a profound rite of passage
Yeah.
with a beloved in some form is like there's no words for that really, is there, of how where that takes a soul.
People that will outsource birth and menopause and midlife are the ones that will outsource death.
Touche, that's the t-shirt.
And when you learn, I am present, this is a privilege, and you wouldn't be anywhere else, then watching that energy, spirit, like it's an ether thing. It's such a visceral, I can't even explain it if you've not felt it, except to say that in the birth energy, there's a baby suddenly in the room, there's a new being there. This feels like the brackets closing, and all of a sudden there's just the density. It's not animated, but the ether just above that is the aura of the most incredible, like sparkles. It's mystical, right?
Totally.
And you wouldn't be anywhere else, and it's nothing to fear. In fact, it's awe-inspiring to watch the peace that they're in then.
Yeah, totally. Beautifully shared, darling. Coming towards sort of wrapping up, because we could talk for hours and just for you listening, we do regularly. I want to talk about the hypnotic component of your work, because when people hear hypnosis, I mean, most people are just visualizing probably, you know, people clucking their wings like chickens walking across stages and all
which is again by design. So that people did it, and the church outlawed it, which of course was the main reason I felt I must go fully deeply into
yes, of course.
I'm the one outside the Vatican calling out, buy a cross, rosary free, buy a cross. My mum's like, oh my God, keep your voice down.
So there's a lot of misunderstanding around that as a tool, by design, you know, again by design. So what do they need to, what's actually going on when they're getting hypnotic?
It's the most natural feeling or thing, let's say, in the world. It's like the alpha state. If anyone that has children, or hopefully trusting there are people that are still doing this, where you stare off into the distance and you don't feel like dragging your eyes away. Like really, if you drop deeply into it, you don't want to get the phone. You don't want to answer the door, because it is actually heaven on earth, complete peace. So when I lead people into that place, my biggest message is you too can be and have been there thousands of times, but we now call it this. And we're using it in therapy, we're using it for change, we're using it for connection. But it's the most natural thing. So once I get people to understand that, what it actually is, and then they experience it for themselves, and every single person that experiences, you know, usually there's a swear word that comes out of their mouth, because they just cannot believe how awe-inspiring it is to be able to completely let go. And it's not that they lose control. They are in possibly more control than they've ever been in their life. And the difference between hypnotic and meditation is that meditation, having studied that also, is kind of like gently moving into the sea. You know, your feet in, your ankles, your knees, you go hip and up, and then finally shoulders, head, and down you go, you're under. With hypnotic, you're beside yourself, quite literally, and then it's a plunge pull into your soul story.
Mm.
So it's that like, and because I'm so impatient, as you know better than anyone. So when I used to speak with the monks about it, I'm like, in the West, people are not going to sit there for 40 minutes morning and night. I mean, there are people that do, and good on them. I'm just not one of those people. So I'm not going to teach something that I don't adhere to and live by.
Yeah.
So when I started doing that, and all your answers are there, why the hell wouldn't you go to where all your answers are rather than outsourcing them? And so clients that have finished the work will say to me, in hypnotic, or my hypnotic said, and I go, then that is etched in stone for you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Because my next question was, you're training facilitators, an element of life, and I'm very proud to be one of them. But what does it mean to you to pass this work on? And what do you hope that those facilitators are going to carry out into the world through that experience?
I really want them to just be able to usher in a body of work that says, connecting with yourself, finding your way, and living your full best existence while you're here is really simple. But it's not easy. And it needs to be stepping stones to that kind of greater understanding of themselves. And we offer those. Yeah. And, the facilitators must walk that path for a year. They have those 4 modules, and you know that. And then they graduate with the offering of how they'll integrate it into the work they already do. That's mostly been what's happened thus far. But I kind of had a vision years ago that I would only train 100 people, and I think we're up to 15 or 20 now. And because that's enough kind of to hold the grid down of the work.
Yeah.
And I feel like as consciousness shifts and evolves further, and this becomes, more mainstream and widespread through the online course, that the community and the portal will be there for one another as well. Yep. Where people will be able, because they'll know, as you said earlier, that they'll understand the languaging, they'll understand the skills and tools, and they can bind it and hold it together for one another. Yeah. And a new fabric or grid will be formed across the planet. Like, I actually have a very large vision for this work. I feel like it needs to be in schools. I believe it needs to be in the corporate sector. Yep. I believe in
prisons, even. I mean, everywhere.
In marriages.
Yeah. In the church.
Oh yeah, can you imagine? But just any institution,
in the Parliament.
Any institution that doesn't acknowledge the holy, and it won't be welcome there. And I've also come to terms with that. Pushing the old round peg through the square hole is no longer my mission.
Yeah, you got to just do you.
Yeah.
Which you were very good at.
Yeah. Yeah. But during a certain amount of time there, so those 3 or 4 years that we both, the dark ages, let's call it.
Let's call it that.
That was my main mission, was to help and save people. And that part was completely finalized one fine day for me. I will never do that again. I will never try, which is lying anyway, to encourage people away from the cognitive dissonance or the story on the external and pretend their way into the external that for them doesn't exist if they don't believe in the sacred and the holy. So in that element, this isn't about forcing your ideas and views, a philosophy or a way of treating and helping people to heal from the inside out onto anyone. It's actually what I've learned: when people are ready, when they've suffered enough and they're ready for change, therefore, they will come and ask. Yep. And I can then offer it to them. It's that, like our infinity symbol, it's that even exchange.
Yeah,
it's a very different way. They're going to be receptive, but also they integrate it on a completely different consciousness. And then I know that it's in the blood and the bones and their soul story cord. Yeah. And they never cannot know it then. And I guess if you speak about what my mission is, that's my mission. Once you know it, you know it. You can't unknow it.
You can't unknow it. You can't unsee it. You can't unbelieve that. Well, you can unbelieve it, unravel it, but you can't. It's a part of you now. Yeah. I'm going to include where people can get in touch with you, obviously, in the show notes. They can reach out about sessions and the course and also the facilitator training. But I always end Wise Words with the same question, Belinda-Jane. What are your parting wise words? If you could leave every woman listening now with one thing, what would it be?
Trust yourself. Trust every fibre of your being, because through the fibres in your being comes the most incredible wisdom, and no one else can bring it. Only you can bring your wisdom, and the universe, the planet, the one song needs your chord. That would be it.
And with that, Blades approves. I've got to leave that in. That's perfect. He's on my lap here, keeping me warm. Belinda-Jane, thank you. This conversation has been pure medicine, and I know the women listening will feel that. I'm so grateful you said yes to being here with me today. And for everyone listening, as I said, I'll put all the links to Belinda-Jane's work below, and I encourage you to go spend some time in her world. I promise you it will be worth it. That's a wrap on today's episode of Wildfire. And if something in this conversation landed for you, sat with you, or lit something up inside or underneath you, I'd love for you to share it with a woman in your life you feel needs to hear it. Because that's how this medicine travels. Woman to woman, story to story, heart to heart. If you're ready to go deeper into your own midlife journey, come find me at denbysheetha.com. The door to Mana Yoga Medicine is always open. And if today's conversation moved you, the most generous thing you can do is leave a review. It only takes a couple of minutes, and it helps Wildfire reach the women who need it most. Until next time, stay in your fire, stay on the rise, and remember, you are not burning out. You are becoming.